Hello and welcome to this edition of Weapons and Warfare from Straight Arrow News. I'm your host, Ryan Robertson. We are coming to you from Tampa, Florida for SOF Week 2024. This is an annual gathering of special operations forces from across the spectrum. Every branch of the U.S. military is represented here, as well as a number of operators from America's allied partners. There are lots of talks about plans, policies, and what the near and long-term futures look like for our special forces. There are also a lot of commercial businesses looking to grow their relationships through their innovation and product lines. Over the next few weeks, we will take a look at all of that. But first, let's get started with some headlines you may have missed. One piece of news making the rounds here in Tampa this week was the announcement that the Pentagon has selected AeroVironment's Switchblade 600 as part of the first tranche of their Replicator initiative. The one-way attack drone got the nod, at least in part, thanks to its performance in Ukraine.
Being part of the tranche it's a confirmation that this system is the right fit for the current needs globally. And we've been a company for over 53 years, and we really enjoy being able to support defense. That's why we're here at SOF Week, and it's why you'll see us at almost every defense show. So we want to hear from the end users. We want to hear that it's working well in the field, and that we want to hear about what folks need in the future so we can develop to that. So Replicator is a confirmation that we are headed in the right direction.
In August of 2023, Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks introduced the Replicator program as part of America's defense against China, with an end goal of producing thousands of affordable, single-use autonomous systems over the next 2 years. Don't expect to see a Hercules walking on water anytime soon, specifically the MC-130J Super Hercules. That news coming out of SOF Week here in Tampa as Colonel T. Justin Bronder, SOCOM's Program Executive Officer for Fixed Wing Programs, said the plan to fit the cargo planes with gear that would allow for water takeoffs and landings has been tabled, at least for now. While it's been talked about for years, the fact that research was done into the idea shows just how serious the U.S. military is looking at the potential for operations out of austere environments in the face of looming threats from China in the Pacific. Meet the new Bradley, not the same as the old Bradley. One of the Army's most important vehicles has received a glow-up. The Army recently released photos of its next-generation M2A4E1 Bradley variant of the legendary fighting vehicle. The Army says it is the most modern and survivable version of the Bradley to date. One reason for that is the integration of an Iron Fist active protection system, along with an improved high-definition forward-looking infrared gunner sight, and an environmental control unit to prevent heat stress for dismounts. The Army received funding for the new variant to replace every Bradley from their inventory that was donated to Ukraine. Even though events like these are not put on by the military, they allow American military leadership to connect with not only their troops, but also the general public. And the main message coming out of many of these panel discussions and keynote speeches is the fact that the SOF community is facing a number of growing challenges. From concerns over the budget to troop levels, the SOF community says the best way to deal with these problems is through cooperation and collaboration. From the start of this year's gathering, SOF leadership made it clear, while there are obstacles to be overcome, it cannot be done at the cost of taking their eye off growing threats from some of America's oldest adversaries.
In this decisive decade, autocrats and terrorists alike seek to upend the free and open international system. From the PRC to Russia, from Iran to North Korea, and violent extremist organizations. Those adversaries seek to divide and weaken the power of these partnerships.
Commander of U.S. Special Operations Command, General Brian Fenton, went on to say that despite those growing challenges, the threats from terrorist groups like Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS still remain, while the new ones from groups like Hamas, the Houthis, and Hezbollah continue to demand attention and resources. One reason why, according to Command Sergeant Major Shane Shorter, it's easier for adversaries to wage havoc than it's ever been before.
We're seeing the character of war rapidly change, with smaller, faster, and cheaper uncrewed systems and robotics. Ubiquitous surveillance tools of every kind, and of course, artificial intelligence, are all creating wicked problems.
One thing that always grabs your eye at conferences like SOF Week 2024 is the sheer amount of technology and tools that are available to today's warfighter. General Fitton says that as accessible as these tools are, they're not what is going to determine the day for special operators.
But I think for us, it becomes an enabler, an amplifier, and an enhancer to all the missions that we're trying to achieve. It's necessary, but at the very center of all that is a special operations teammate.
That thought was echoed by retired Army General Vincent Brooks. The former commander of U.S. Army Pacific and U.S. Army Central says the advantage American special operators bring to the fight is a willingness to interoperate with not only other branches, but other allied partners.
So I think that this approach to having great capability in both the unconventional and special operations arena as well as the general purpose arena is what can give us a decided advantage over our adversaries who have great challenges in bringing such things together.
Perhaps proof that what the SOF community is doing is working comes from the very top. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown, said, in essence, he likes their style.
They don't ask for permission. They tend to lean forward, and there's a fine line between leaning forward and falling over, and they know how to lean forward. And they might fall over every once in a while, but what they really do is they actually challenge the status quo, and that's what we need.
Serving you clarity through context, our mission at SAN is to deliver the news straight down the middle. We're different from mainstream media because we spotlight distorted headlines and show you how to do it too. Discover stories that right and left-leaning outlets are choosing not to cover by using our Media Mist tool. Download the SAN app and turn on notifications to have straight facts delivered right to your phone or tablet, and get straight facts anytime at SAN.com.
Time now for our weapon of the week, and there is no shortage of candidates. From firearms to fire controls and a whole host of vehicles, we had our pick of the latest tech. One of the things that really caught our eye was about the size of a softball. It's a 360-degree tactical throwable camera from Bounce Imaging. And honestly, guys, it's way more than meets the eye. At first glance, you'd be forgiven for thinking this ball was just another toy from a toy box. But you'd be mistaken, because this ball contains some very serious tech.
These are 360-degree throwable cameras. They're used in law enforcement, search and rescue, and in the context this week, in special operations. And it's something that you can throw into an environment and get an instant 360-degree view of what's going on to many people, so that you can have a better view of what's going on in that space.
Like all great ideas, a 360-degree throwable camera packed into a ball took some time to become a reality. Bounce Imaging started in 2012, but the technology needed to complete their vision needed some time to catch up. But when it did in 2016, it didn't take long for potential users to see what was possible.
What folks love about this is that you can take it out, turn it on, deploy it, view it on your video feed, understand it very quickly with a very low cognitive load.
To put it in even simpler terms, there's not a lot to think about when using it. That's why this hard rubber ball, equipped with 6 cameras and two-way radio, that's right, you can talk to people through it, has become an invaluable tool for police, search and rescue, and special forces operators. In fact, Bounce Imaging CEO Francisco Aguilar says their users are their best innovators.
That people have come up with really clever ways to use this to look over walls, down tunnels, inside attic spaces, around corners, in ways that they wouldn't have been able to do it with a much lower demand on their thinking than with other tools.
Another cool feature, it doesn't require any other equipment. That's because users can view images from the ball right on their smartphone. Just download the Bounce Viewer app and go.
We know it's making a difference, which we're super proud of, and we hope to get it out to more folks in the future.
One last thing, this very rugged camera is also multilingual. Mark Farguson told us the ball is preloaded with very simple commands in 20 different languages, meaning users not only have a clear picture, but they're breaking down barriers as well.
All opinions expressed in this segment are solely the opinions of the contributors.
All right, folks, we are almost out of time for this episode of Weapons in Warfare. But before we go, I'm going to spend a little bit of time and talk about the importance of practice.
Not a game.
That's right. We're talking about practice.
Practice?
Practice.
We're in here talking about practice.
Whether you're an athlete, a musician, or a member of the Special Operations Forces community, you need to practice. How else can you expect to perform at a high level? However, whether it's the SOF community or the wider military as a whole, practice for service branches carries much more weight. If soldiers don't train, nations are put at risk, which is why the United States military puts such a high emphasis on training, on practice. It doesn't matter what kind of fancy superweapon an adversary has, if the soldiers trained to use it get bad training. The U.S. military's level of training is the gold standard by which all other militaries are measured. And it's why our allies and partners welcome opportunities to learn from and train with U.S. personnel. We saw one part of this training on full display in Tampa during a capabilities demonstration that most in the area call the Battle of the Bay. Special operators from 10 countries proved with the right training, with the right practice. Operators from different countries with different cultures and different languages can come together and perform at a high level. Do you have a hill in your life that you need to climb? Does it seem like it's too daunting of a task to take on? Well, take a cue from the SOF community and practice. Practice getting up that hill. And once you have enough practice under your belt, go for the top. And, speaking of practice, we thought there was no better way to end this episode of Weapons in Warfare than bringing you the sights and sounds of this year's Battle of the Bay. So, for senior producer Brett Baker, video editor Brian Spencer, and graphics designer Dakota Patillo, I'm Ryan Robertson with Straight Arrow News, signing off.